Welcome back to Photoshop for photographers, and today we're going to take a look at some of the cloning tools inside of Adobe Photoshop. I have my toolbar set up differently today. This is the photography default, so photography default. If you're looking for how that looks, you want to go to photography default. I usually have this set up different because I don't like the brushes the way they're set up. They're kind of nested underneath each other, and I like them to be separate on the toolbar. But this is how it's going to come set up for most of you, so I thought it would be best to do it this way. The first brush that we have here is called the Spot Healing Brush. The Spot Healing Brush uses something in Photoshop called Content Aware. Now you want to make sure Content Aware is selected. And if you have an early version of Photoshop, Content Aware, I think it used to be over here, but I'm not sure. But anywhere it is, make sure Content Aware is selected. You also have Sample All Layers. So if you have multiple layers and you need to sample multiple layers, you can check that. And since this is only one layer, we don't need anything selected there. This tool is really easy to use. These tools are typically used a lot of times for retouching faces, but you can use these tools to remove dust or specks or anything anywhere in an image that you want to. I'm just going to show you here. The first one's called Spot Healing Brush. And the way Content Aware is you're going to remove something. So in this case, let me move over to this pointer. We're going to remove this area right here. Content Aware reads the information outside of it to see what the values are and what the texture is like, and then it will replace it with what it thinks it should be. So I'm gonna go ahead and click off that. I'm gonna click back on this brush, and I'm just gonna paint over that area, and it's gonna analyze it, and you can see it's gonna remove it. It missed this little spot, so we'll paint over that. So right here, I can read over top of that. It's going to analyze it and remove it. Here, it's going to remove it. Here, it's going to remove it. This one's a little bigger, so we'll make that and it removes just like that. So that's how the Spot Healing Brush works. It uses by Content Aware, and you can go really fast and just kind of motor through removing blemishes on people's faces. Right there, we were removing just blemishes, but I can also remove this line, so I can just paint along this line. It's going to analyze that, and just like that, it's going to remove it. Now, if you ever do this and you can see where it removed that area, hit Command Z, and that is always under Edit, Undo Spot Healing Brush. So the last thing that you did, if you hit Command Z on a Mac or Control Z on a PC, that's automatically going to undo it. You can try to go over it again. If you can see where that's happening, just go ahead, hit Command Z, it will apply it. Sometimes this isn't the best brush to do that with. So we're going to go to the next brush. So I'm going to hold on that area, and then this window is going to pop up, and I'm going to pick the Healing Brush tool. The Healing Brush tool is almost exactly like Content Aware, except you need to pick a source point. So what does a source point mean? So a source point means this, and we're going to click off that for a second. Right here, we have a line on someone's face, but right out here, the skin's pretty nice. So I'm going to select this area to replace this area. Now, the way we would do that is grab the brush. You're going to hold that Alt-Option key down, and notice it turns into like a rifle scope target. That means that's the area that you want to pick. You're going to click once with your mouse, and then you can let go with the Alt-Option key and your finger. I'm going to make this a little smaller, and then I can paint over that area. So it's taking this area, which I targeted, and replacing it with that texture. Now, a lot of times I actually prefer this brush because I think it's more accurate. And a lot of times you don't see where you did it. So notice we have source sampled. You can also do it from a pattern, but in this case, we're going to do sampled. We have the current layer, current and below, or all layers that we can select as well. The next one below that is called the Patch tool. The way the Patch tool works is you're going to select the area. So I'm drawing a circle all the way around. I'm saying, hey, I want to remove this area. Once again, we're using Content Aware. But this case, we are able to control the structure and the color in the image. Now, I don't need the color to be that strong or that accurate. So the lower the number, the less accurate it is, the higher, the more accurate. Structure, if you think of it, the lower the structure, the more blurry it's going to make it. The higher the number, the more accurate it's using or recreating that texture. Now, in this face, we don't really need it to be that high. So once I've done that, I'm going to go inside this selected area. I'm going to click, hold, and then drag to the area that I want to replace it with. I'm going to let go with my mouse, and bam, just like that, it's replaced that area. So it missed this little area. I'll do it again. We'll replace it with that area. I want to remove this area. I'm going to circle it, drag it to a new area. I want to remove this. I'll circle it and drag it to a new area. That is called the patch tool. Now you don't have to you can use the patch tool anywhere. So if I want to remove this moon, I might need a little more structure, but I'm going to be okay. I'm just going to go ahead and replace that, and that's gone. Now you can see it's a little bit fuzzy there. So if I want to hit Command Z to kind of undo what I did, I can come in here and I can increase the structure so it's a little bit more accurate. And then hopefully when I do this, it's going to create some more of those dots and pixels. And you just kind of go through. A lot of this is trial and error until you get used to it. But if you do something and it doesn't look good, go ahead and adjust some of those and try to do it over again. You can also do this with a larger area. So I can come down here and I can circle this reflection, and I can say I want to remove the reflection and replace it with this area, and we'll let it go, and it's replacing it with that area. Now, did it do a perfect job? No, we can see that transition, but this is something that we can fix. We're going to go to the next tool, which is the content aware move tool. This is usually the one that people love, but it's the one that you probably almost never use. So the way this tool moves is, once again, we have the availability to do structure and color in it, but you're going to circle what you want to move, which is the tree. And then I'm going to move it to where I want to replace it to. So I'm going to say, hey, I want you to move that tree from here to there. Now I'm going to apply this. I can either click up here or hit the enter button. And it's going to remove this tree and replace it over here. Just like that, you can see a little slight halo of where it went around and where it replaced it. You would need to adjust these to try to get it so it blends in the best. But there's other ways that you can come in here and sort of fix those areas. And one of those ways is with the clone stamp tool. Now the clone stamp tool, I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to reduce my brush to about the area size that I want. The clone stamp is very similar to the healing brush. Notice that we have a lot of the same stuff. So all layers, sample, we could do current layer, all layers. We only need current layer because we have one layer. And what you're going to do with that is make your brush about the size of the area that you want to remove. You're going to do a target again. So you're going to hold that Alt option. You're going to click to get the sampled area, and then click again to replace it. I'm going to click here to target that area, and then click once to replace that area. A lot of times you're using a combination. So I would probably take the patch tool if I wanted to remove this, and I can circle this. Now, a lot of times when you use the patch tool or any content aware and it gets near an area like this, it's going to recreate that area up there. We'll see what happens. So we're going to go ahead and say replace it there. And you can see, yes, this area picked up down here. Right there, we have some sort of messed up areas. Now we can come down here to the clone stamp tool. I can reduce the size of my brush, and I can just clone stamp that out. Now it's a little bit hard of an edge, so I'm going to make my brush softer, and I'm going to reduce the opacity a little bit. So opacity is going to reduce how much you're doing. So I was doing this at 100%. This time I'm going to be doing it only at 89%, and hopefully that will allow it to blend in a little bit more. As you can see, I'm just clicking over that, and we're getting that to go away. So we're going to come here, and I can remove most of that. We got a little bit, but that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hit revert again. And I'm going to show you how the clone stamp works. A lot of people think the target always stays in this place. So in this case, I'm going to make this target, make my brush a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to clone out that area. And then I can just, any area like that, if I want to come over here, I can keep cloning it out. But as you move your brush, your target moves as well. The best way to show this is to use this little tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a target right out here. I'm going to make a target, I'm going to click, and I'm going to go up above this. And then I'm just going to drag across like this. I'm going to hold my mouse down and drag across, and it's going to continue the clone. But as I do this, notice right below it, there's a little plus. It's also moving my target spot. So as I move left to right, your target spot moves as well. Let's do that again. Right out here, this is my target. But when I click and hold, my target spot also moves at the same time. So a lot of times when you're using the clone stamp tool, you have to continually retarget an area. I can come here, click a spot, clone over that. But when I come over here, I need to click a spot again and target that area. It will give you a more accurate clone, and it will make sure that you don't get the wrong spot. When you use the clone stamp tool, don't forget your target area is going to move along with your brush. So hopefully you've learned a little bit about some of the basics in the clone stamp tools. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.